$0 to $2,500, the financial cost of adopting each child through the foster care system. I'm your host, Marcy Bursack, and I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to find more forever families. In fact, one for each child waiting in the foster care system. After blogging my journey adopting a pair of siblings, I realized that I knew countless people who had a desire to adopt, but believed it was too expensive. So I wrote a book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option. I wrote a book for children, Are You a Forever Family? And I started this podcast. I am so delighted that you are tuning in. In season 2, I'm dropping monthly episodes to teach you how to adopt those U.S. children who are waiting for you in the foster care system. You might also enjoy the personal stories of adoptive parents and adopted children that I featured in season 1. Now, whether right now feels like the right time, the process feels overwhelming, or someone quickly comes to mind to share this with, I am here for you. I am America's foster care adoption mentor, and I'm eager to help you fulfill a child's dream of having their forever family. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. In this episode, you're going to learn how to understand the unmet needs of children in foster care. I'm joined today by child welfare advocate Shari Shink. Hey, Shari.
Hey, how you doing?
I am so excited to meet you in person. I'm in Denver for a work trip, and Shari lives here, so we get to hang out in person. And I have to share with everyone, she's got this delightful, artistic, creative personality, really fun earrings, this brooch with feathers. So if you could just imagine, we're sitting in the back of this empty restaurant, hanging out and talking about foster care adoption. And it's such a delight to hear her story. She spent 33 years as a lawyer. She founded the Rocky Mountain Children's Law Center, which was the very first nonprofit law firm, hear that together, nonprofit law firm for abused and neglected children. Over her career, she's transformed the lives of over 15,000 children, which is amazing. Pivoting from law, she actually recently founded Cobbled Streets, which is another nonprofit that goes upstream to serve younger foster children, promoting their health, growth, and development, and preventing them from emancipating from the foster care system to the streets and homelessness. So more on this later. I'm so excited for Shari to share. So we're gonna start off with, there's so much to talk about. We're gonna start with the root really of your empathy and passion to work in this space. Now, we had some pre-conversation, which I wish I would have brought the phone and recorded at that point, because we just got very excited and energized and angry to want to fix things. So I'm curious where your empathy starts from, and really what sparked your heart into working with children in the foster care system.
Actually, I think there were a few steps before I got to the foster kids, but I grew up in a very loving family with parents who taught me to give. I mean, that was the lesson learned in every aspect of our lives. You know, give to the neighbors, give to the church, give to the Girl Scouts, just give of your time, give of your talent, give of your resources in any way you can. And so I tutored kids when I was in college. I taught dancing lessons to kids when I was young. I got engaged with kids in lots of different ways. And before I went to law school, I took a year off from college, and I worked in a daycare center. And again, in keeping with my family, my father created this circus out of our daycare center. And my mom made costumes, my dad made props, and I decided we were going to have a circus for all of the children in all of the daycare centers in the area. So as a dancer, I'm sitting on the floor, these little kids in costumes are dancing, and I'm going shuffle ball, change, shuffle ball, turn this way, turn that way. And I'm watching their little faces dance for all these other little kids. They're like 3 to 5 years old. And I'm looking at them, and these were all kids that were from the poor neighborhoods, many of them, or most of them, children of single moms. And I'm saying to myself, these are the kids that I want to serve. So I got this boost about law school, and I wasn't going to hang around anymore. And I thought, okay, I'm definitely going to law school. But that was 45 years ago, and there wasn't really a field of children's law. But when I discovered at a legal services program that I worked in that they had a special unit devoted to children, I discovered that there were abused and neglected children, and those children ended up in foster care. And that was my beginning.
I love that it started with a circus. So is step ball change like you're doing tap?
Well,
you're doing ballet?
I'm doing the steps with my hands while they're doing them with their feet. But I'm sitting on the floor in front of them, like a teacher does when you're trying to get kids to do, like if they're in a play or they're doing anything, and you have to give them directions. And so I remember that moment as if it were yesterday.
You probably remember all the faces of all those kids.
Absolutely.
It's like impressioned. That's amazing. Yeah. I just love how at a young age that was something that, like, it created your entire future. It gave you like a vision for that, and you just like knew. And who knew back then what you'd be doing now, right?
Right.
And I wonder, as you've gone throughout your career advocating for children, I imagine there's some stories that kind of stick out, perhaps. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about a few of the stories that come to mind.
Sure. One of the stories, I can tell you a story that involves a young woman that I traveled with. I met her when she was 16. She had been in the system for 8 years. And a local CASA director contacted me and said, I'm involved with this young woman. She's 16. She's got, several, brothers and sisters, but she's this remarkable young woman, and I just thought you needed to know her. Well, let me tell you, I met this young woman and her brother, who was a year or two younger than her. I met them both at the same time, and I was smitten. It was like, oh my gosh, the story these young people told me about their lives. They had been in foster care for a dozen years. They had moved repeatedly. They'd been separated from their brothers and sisters. I mean, a path that I could never have survived. And yet they were both just charming and delightful and smart and capable. And I basically decided that I was going to travel with them across this nation and put them in front of as many audiences as I possibly could. And so literally a dozen cities and Puerto Rico, and they did incredibly well and certainly informed and inspired the nation. But I kept in touch with them even, after they got older. And I said to the girl, and she wouldn't mind me saying her name, Tish, and I just said to her, what do you want to do with your life? And she said, I want to be a nurse. And so she did. She got scholarships for college, and she was able to do that on her own, but she wouldn't have been able to go to nursing school. And so I introduced her to a benefactor who basically helped her through nursing school. And she, during this pandemic, so she graduated a few years back, and during this pandemic, she's traveled the nation taking care of those that were sick as a result of the pandemic. Wow. And just an amazing young woman. And so what I learned from her is, that there's a strength in some kids, an internal strength, that no matter what they face and what their challenges are, they are able, because of the people around them, to support them and encourage them. They are able to make it in this world and even go beyond anything that they or even, I might have imagined. And then there are other kids who don't get those opportunities and don't have, the chance, and are destroyed literally by what they face, in the foster care system. So you learn from, both of those experiences. And one of the reasons why I started Cobbled Streets now is because in all of the litigation that I was engaged in on behalf of kids over the 33 years, I had to fight just for common sense. You know, I had to go to the Colorado Supreme Court to get them to order the Department of Social Services not to move a child, a 4-year-old, happy, healthy child who had been placed in their care at birth by a mother who knew she couldn't take care of him. She suffered from schizophrenia. She wanted something better for him. So she placed him in a foster home, hoping that he would be adopted. And he was in foster care for 4 years because the department never got around to freeing him for adoption. And so when the family who had raised him for 4 years had gone to them to say, hey, we're willing to adopt, and they said, okay, you know, when we get around to it, you know, we'll certainly allow that. They built an addition onto their home. They raised him for 4 years. He was their son. And then when they finally got it in the court system, they decided that, oh, they're going to give this child to somebody on an adoption wait list, rather than respect and recognize the relationship that had developed over 4 years. I went to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis to get them to overrule that decision, and they did. The good news is they did. The bad news is, who can go to the Supreme Court? I mean, what foster family or some other party could have ever sought that kind of a remedy? I mean, I was a part of a nonprofit organization. We didn't, you know, have to get people to pay us for making those kinds of choices or decisions. But it was an incredible exercise to try to get the right thing to happen for one little 4-year-old in a system that doesn't work unless you make it work in some way. So I spent 30 years fighting for common sense, fighting for the right things, the right decisions, to keep kids in the family they might have been in for a couple of years, to keep siblings together, to get them mental health treatment. And I decided that I might be able to do more for kids if I gave them a little bit of joy, if they allowed them to have a more genuine childhood. You know, if they could be on a soccer team or do equine therapy or learn how to swim, or how about taekwondo? You know, we just put 4 kids in taekwondo today. I mean, just those moments. And we're not a Make-A-Wish organization, so you don't like give us one wish and then we're done. I want to meet kids when they're 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 years old and give them all of the building blocks of learning who they are and what they're passionate about and what they would like to do with their life and what they're interested in. You know, when we were kids, you know, when I was a kid, I took dancing lessons, but I learned how to play an organ, and my sister did sports, and my brother, and we got to choose, and we got to learn stuff about ourselves. And we got to make some decisions that allowed us to move in a direction that would allow us to be successful and healthy and happy and engaged in the world. That's what I want for these kids. I'm probably not gonna live long enough to see them all get to the point of 18 or 25 or whatever, but I certainly want to eliminate that pipeline from foster care to homelessness, because that has been the statistic for decades. And people just kind of shrug their shoulders as if it's a foregone conclusion. And it's not. And this isn't rocket science. You know, these are little things. I mean, there's a little girl that's doing gymnastics now, and every day is better for her, according to her foster family. Every day is better for her because she's so excited about that one day a week that she goes to gymnastics. And not just her. Her family is better for it also. They are all engaged around that opportunity for her. And then I'll tell you one more story. Little Natalie was mostly nonverbal at the age of 5 years old, and her foster mother thought that she might benefit from swimming lessons and safety swimming. I had never heard anybody talk about safety swimming, but for children with autism, drowning is one of the leading causes of death, and so she was going to be happy with just safety swimming. Well, Natalie did so well in safety swimming, I said to the British Swim School, well, what's next? I'm sure there's oh yes, there's the minnows, and then there's the tadpoles, and then there, and I thought, well, she should learn how to swim. What a cool thing that would be. Well, little Natalie isn't nonverbal anymore. She's a loving, engaged little girl who loves the world and engages with the world. And I don't see her clinging on to her foster father's leg anymore, fearful of, moving out into the room where there might be other kids. Her smile is so big, her face can't contain it. She is just this loving little girl. And she's our little ambassador because she is just so special. So, anyway.
Yeah,
sorry.
Sure. No, it's so good.
It's go on and on.
You should go on and on. I mean, the experiences and opportunities that you're able to connect kids with, to get to know themselves, to do things that they dream of.
Yes, they dream.
Right? They dream of. I want to try. I don't know if I can. Right. And to give her swimming, to give education to be in. There's all these stories that we shared. It's just. It's interesting to see how just a simple thing, simple of just, I'll help you do that. I know offline you had shared one of your dreams is for every kid to see the ocean, but you have kind of a story behind that. I'd love if you would share that.
Well, it's really interesting to talk to a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old who says, all my life I wanted to do X. And so I do have this little guy now who said, all my life I wanted to go to space camp. And so he's going to go to space camp.
Oh, man.
But the dream for me is just, I saw this movie called McFarland. And it's a true story, which is wonderful. When you see an inspiring movie and you learn that it's a true story, you get even more inspired. But it was a coach that was working with it, in a poor school, in a poor neighborhood, and decided that he wanted to start a team of runners or something, and he had never done it. But, it was a school with very few resources, and so he was given the opportunity. You want to try it, try it. And so the story is a beautiful story, and I don't want to share it because I want anybody that's listening to watch this movie. It's so good. But there's a part in the movie where they're coming back from a meet, some competition or some practice or training or something like that. And they're in this little bus, 7 kids, and the coach is the driver. And so he takes a detour and he goes another way. And the kids are saying, Coach, you're going the wrong way. And so he drives them to the ocean, and it's not a resort. And there are no people on this ocean. It's just, on some back road, you can get to this ocean. And so the kids get out of the bus, and they're standing there, and they're like, they don't know what to do. They're like statues. And the coach says, go. So they start ripping off their T-shirts, and they run into the ocean, and I'm thinking to myself, that's the kind of aha moment that I want every foster child to experience. Now, it might not be the ocean for everybody, and I don't want it to be my dream. If their aha moment is getting on an airplane and flying to Durango, Colorado, or if their aha moment is, hiking in the mountains or seeing Mount Rushmore or whatever their moment is, meeting some Rockies baseball player. I mean, how cool would that be? I mean, who knows? I mean, one of our kids got seats literally right behind the owner of the Rockies, so a great seat with his family to go to a ball game. And he let me know that it was the best thing in his life. So if somebody says that a simple ball game is the best thing in your life, can you imagine how they're going to flourish if all of a sudden they're experiencing other pretty cool things? So I just want to have the resources to ensure that every single kid in foster care gets one or dozens of those aha moments.
Which is beautiful. And it's interesting. I love that you said, I want it to be their dream, not mine. But it started with something that touched you as a kind of relatable dream,
right,
like
exactly.
being able to see it. So with the backdrop that you take dreams and you help them come true, which sort of sounds like Disney, but then you also have the backdrop of this isn't Make-A-Wish, and you want to do dozens of dreams per kid. Tell us about what Cobbled Streets is and tell us why this work is happening.
Well, one reason it's happening is because, after spending, 40 years, I litigated for 33, but I was 40 years a part of the Rocky Mountain Children's Law Center. And so I was feeling like, I was certainly at an age when I could retire. And when they, had a going away party for me, everybody called it a retirement party. And I kept trying to tell them, I'm not retiring. It's like I'm going to do this until I drop, until God takes me off to some better place. And so it was just a matter of leaving the battles in the courtroom and figuring out a simpler way that I could give to this population of kids. And so I just thought, how cool would it be? Because when I was fighting in the system, I was fighting for, to get them into a good family or to get them mental health treatment or to make sure that their academic program was appropriate or a kind of basic things. Nobody had the time or the money or the resources or even the energy to think about, maybe this kid should learn how to swim. So that's what I wanted to focus on, those childhood moments. And, it's really about creating memories. Like, I remember 40 years ago when I was running this, daycare center and I was sitting on the floor and these kids were tap dancing in, little tap shoes with little costumes that my mom made them. I remember that like it was yesterday. As I also remember my own dancing as a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old or whatever. So these moments are not only the building blocks for a future, but these moments are things that they'll remember. That it'll be the memories they talk to when they go to college and they'll talk about, what was the best thing in your childhood? So I just wanted them to be simple. I wanted them to be easy. I didn't want to have to fight to convince somebody. I didn't want a process. I didn't want criteria. I wanted a sense of urgency. And so if somebody called me and said, I'd really like to, take swimming lessons, I would say, do you know where you want to go? Yes, the British Swim School. I said, okay, I'll call up the British Swim School, make the payments, and sign your daughter up for 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 years or whatever it is that we had talked about. And you're done. And it's so interesting. One of the first calls I got was actually from an agency person who was working with a foster mother who wanted to take in a sibling set of 2 foster kids. But she had some needed adjustment to her house, some construction thing that cost $3,900 to get this thing fixed in order to take 2 kids. And nobody would pay the $3,900. And then finally they got somebody to pay half of the amount. And they called Cobbled Streets to say, can you pay the other half? And I said, sure. And so this agency person said, so do you have to meet with your board of directors? Do you know the timing? When could I get the check? And, will it be 2 weeks? Will it be sooner? I said, honey, the check's in the mail, because I don't want anybody to wait. I want to make the decision immediately. Now, if we get big and we all of a sudden have millions of dollars, there might need to be some process, but it's not going to be about who gets it and who doesn't get it. Everybody's going to get it, because that's been one of my rules, and we've been around for almost 2 years now, and I've not violated this rule, and I never intend to violate it. That we don't say no to anybody. You need something and it's for a kid. So this renovation was theoretically for the adult and for her home, except she was taking in 2 kids who didn't have a home. So 2 kids got a home because, we spent, a little less than $2,000 to try to get this renovation done. So most of it's about fun and joy and a moment to put a smile on their faces. It's not about these sorts of things. But
sometimes it is, because that's what's needed,
But sometimes,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I just got a picture of a young person standing with his arms in the air, like he's literally jumping in the air, because his grandmother was able to renovate the garage to give him his own space so that she could then take in another grandchild who didn't have a place either. And in that picture, if that wasn't joyful, I don't know what is joyful. It was the most incredible statement of, you don't know what is going to make a difference for a child, for a family. But, we then offered, hey, if there are things in the community that you'd like to take advantage of, some experiences, some activities. So that's really what Cobbled Streets is about. Experiences and opportunities, for these kids. And through that, relationships. Because if you're taking swimming lessons and you have the same teacher every week, that's a relationship. If you're playing Little League ball, you have a coach, and that's a relationship. And in all of the other ways, like we had golf mentors. So we had 6 kids golfing, and the golf course gave us all the equipment, gave us the teachers, did everything for us, and we were on the best golf course in Denver. My job for Cobbled Streets was to find each of those 6 kids a mentor, an adult who came for each of the 6 lessons so that each child had one mentor for themselves. Those kids loved those mentors so much that 2 of those kids started wearing their school uniform shirt, like their little, the kind of shirts that golfers wear.
The polos?
Polo
There you
shirts,
go.
yes, thank you. They started wearing their polo shirts to their golf lessons because they wanted to be like their mentors.
Aww.
And they would like when everybody got out on the field, they would run to their mentors and stand in front of them waiting to be acknowledged, as if to say, I'm here and you're here and I'm so excited you're here. It was such a beautiful thing, and that was the first year. And then this year we did it again, and the same 6 mentors came, but we multiplied it, so we served 13 kids, and so we had to increase our mentors also. But so some of the kids that were in the program last year got their same mentors for a second year in a row, and then they did a Christmas party for them and bought them Christmas gifts, and I mean, it goes on from there. The relationship doesn't end on the golf course. They get so inspired. The adults get so inspired by these kids because they're so grateful and excited, and they don't know what to do with themselves because they've never experienced such a thing before. So that people are encouraged to continue that relationship, and it's almost indescribable.
Right, and I wish, it's funny, I deliberately do podcasts as audio recordings, and I appreciate the grace of our listeners. I'm we're in this hotel, and we had a cart with I think dishes go by. So that's what you heard. That's what you were listening to. We're trying to make this work. But what I love is how simple yet powerful yet just the examples that these kids are given and helping them be able to imagine. And it's so cool. But what I wish people could see, because this is only audio, is Shari's passion as she talks. There's such, and you can probably feel the warmth and the energy behind it, but just her facial expressions and the animation that go with hearing her story of her life dedicated in this space is incredible. So I just want to pass that along to our listeners. That's what you'd be seeing, is just such passion being exuded. And a couple things I want to touch on. One is when we had talked on the phone before meeting in person, you explained that you aren't a foster care expert, which I thought was interesting. But you said people come to you wanting to help. And instead of saying, well, here's how, you actually ask them a question. You ask them, well, what do you want to do? And do you know how to do that? And that's so interesting. So I'd love if you would explain, why do you ask a question instead of answering the question?
Because I believe that if people are doing what they want to do, if their heart is moved to do something that they enjoy or they think they would be good at, they are going to be the best at it. And I don't want to tell them what I need them to do, because it won't be the right match, and you won't see the magic. And so when they say, well, I can do, I can't be a foster parent because, I already have 5 kids, or I can't be a foster parent for any number of reasons. But I'd like to do something for them. And so then I would say something like, Well, there are times of the year when there are special needs. For example, there's a birthday, and if you wanted to provide a birthday for a particular child, or if you wanted to provide a birthday for all the kids born in October, or you wanted to get all your friends together. And then we would look at all the kids that we know who have a birthday in October, and we would tell you, and then you could go about that, or, to buy school supplies, or if you want to tutor a child, or, how would you like to take a child shopping? As a matter of fact, we had a young girl call us recently who was graduating from high school, didn't have a family, and called us and asked if we could cover the cost of invitations or announcements. And I said, sure. $50. And so I said, well, how would you like to get a new dress for graduation? Maybe a new pair of shoes. And in my head, I'm thinking, maybe get your hair done. How about a mani-pedi? But I didn't want to put ideas into her head. I thought a graduation, we all want to get a new dress for special events. So I said to her, would you be interested in going shopping with someone who could help you pick out a dress for graduation? Well, she wanted to think about it, so she called us the next day and said yes. So I got a friend who was the wife of one of the golf mentors.
Oh.
And I said, you should take a friend, because, I think people always need to, it's just always a good idea to go with somebody else, because number one, more than one person gets to experience a foster youth. And that foster youth gets more than just one person to be with in case there's some awkward moments or something like that. So she took a friend who happened to be the wife of another one of the mentors, and that friend brought her 7-year-old daughter.
Oh.
So the three of them took this young girl, and they went shopping, they went out for lunch, they had such a good time. Everybody was just blown away by this amazing young woman, despite, what little opportunities she had really in terms of her experiences. So both families all went to her graduation.
Wow.
And now I believe that she has these two families that will be a part of her life forever. And so I don't remember what led to me wanting to talk about her.
Because somebody came to you with the idea, right? Because you were thinking of, how can I help? Well, tell me your vision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways that you can help a young person. And if we start from where you are, what you would like to do, because then you won't just do it for one person. You will do it for a dozen, or you will gather your friends together and they'll do it. And so it's just a beautiful thing to watch it just sort of grow from being, I think I'll do a nice thing this day, to, oh my gosh, there's this young person in my life now, or there are these, a half a dozen little boys who have just golfed all, spring, in my life. There's just so much that happens as a result.
Yeah, and it sounds like because you have people starting where they are, so like what can I do to help? And you mentioned like sometimes that's time, it's tutoring, or it's being the one to go do the shopping. You're not paying for it, but you're taking and helping the decision making, right? And sometimes it is something financial. It is paying for the lessons. And so as we kind of wrap up, I wonder what encouragement would you offer for people that think, well, they've heard lots of examples, and some they might think, I could do that, but then there's some they might think I could never do that, or I don't have the ability to do that. How would you encourage people that are saying, what can I do to help? How can I help children in foster care? What would you, anywhere in the country, what can they do?
I think you should look for an organization that is working with kids in foster care. I think that it's easy to get discouraged if you go to one of the government agencies, where it's the County Department of Social Services or the State Department of Social Services. And there are good people everywhere. Everybody means well. It's just that bureaucracies are just tougher to deal with. And so I would urge you to go to a nonprofit organization or a church or a community center or wherever there might be kids in foster care. And a lot of times people believe, a few years back I wanted to develop a community center for kids in foster care, and a lot of the feedback I got was, oh, well, there's the Boys and Girls Clubs, and then there's this and there's that. Well, foster kids are really unique, and they are not only unique in their experiences, but in the sadness that surrounds their life. If you're in a family that, a low-income family or a poor family, you still have a mother or a dad or a relative maybe that's yours. You're not in this strange system that they call foster care, and you're not labeled as a foster child and all of those things. And what we know among special populations of kids, so if you look at kids that are homeless, or you look at kids that have special needs, or if you look at kids that are incarcerated, they all fare better than kids in foster care, because kids in foster care deal with the, removal from the home in the middle of the night and being placed in a family that's a stranger and maybe separated from your siblings and maybe moving around multiple times. And, so the reason that I would move you in the direction of those kids is because anything you do for them is going to be more than they already have. And so if you find an agency that you want to work with, then you tell them how you would like to give. And you might bring them an idea. They might never have thought about anything. And I'll share one example of a partner agency that I have with Cobbled Streets right now, where they recruit families, regular families, who are willing to provide a meal once a month. Same time every month. So let's say you pick the first Friday of every month, and you make a home-cooked meal and you deliver it to the foster family, just as a way to say, here I am, I want to do something, and this is how I can help this whole family. And some of those foster families might open the door and invite you in to join them. Some of those families might take the food at the door and you just go your way. I thought when I first learned about it that a month is a really long time to wait for the next contact, but they do have another phone contact during the month. So if the foster family has any identified need that the family could meet and they're willing to, fine. If not, they just contact the agency. But I just did that for a foster mom of one of the kids that was in our camp program. So he had a week of camp. He was a delightful young boy with lots of special needs, but the foster mom was feeling a bit overwhelmed and called and was in tears about all of the struggles and the whatever, and we did more than just a meal, but because of that experience in learning about this agency that provides meals, I thought, okay, I can give her a gift card for gas, I can give her a gift card to go to the grocery store. But when I take her those gift cards, I'm taking her a hot meal. And her favorite grocery store is Sprouts. So I went to Sprouts and I got, a whole chicken. And this was all hot. So, a whole chicken and mashed potatoes and gravy and cornbread and, and all the trimmings. And I delivered a hot meal. And she was in tears over that hot meal, because she could then go into the house and sit down with her, foster son, and they could enjoy they sent me a picture of them eating this meal great. Because it was, so how simple is that? So find a foster family in the community and take them a hot meal, or, help with the transportation of a foster child. It's a little complicated because of, background checks and all the rest. So that's not always as easy. But, maybe you teach music lessons. Maybe you teach piano, and you teach piano in your home. How about inviting if you learn about a foster child that might want to learn how to play the piano, and that you donate your time to teach that one child, how to play the piano. it really should start from you, because you know your interests, you know your talents, you know your time, you know what you have to give.
I feel like you've left us in such encouragement. I feel like there's so many ideas in my head that I'm thinking there's so many unique ways that we all are gifted, that we can help in this space. And it's, okay, well, all we have to do is, maybe you're uncomfortable to go ask that friend that you know is fostering, or maybe you've never interacted with a child in foster care, so thinking to teach them piano feels uneasy. Do it anyway. Just try it, because you're going to learn, they're going to grow, you're going to grow. And so this has been so encouraging. Your energy is so contagious, and I am so grateful for the mark that you've left, not just on children in this system, but on the legacy of their futures. And I just feel so encouraged that you have shared your story and that you've lived the life that you have. And so I just want to say thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I'll talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere, because I just know there are people out there that want to do something, and this is such a wonderful something. And I mentioned a little while ago about birthday parties. I just want to let you know how many kids I've met across this nation over 30 years that have never had their birthday celebrated in foster care. Now, I know too many wonderful foster families, so I don't want to paint a broad brush and say that that's a common thing. I can just tell you that in the 30 years that I was litigating and speaking across the country and meeting foster kids across the nation, that was always such a common theme. And so even if it's not true that, kids, have never had a birthday celebration, can you imagine how you could celebrate a birthday in such a big, bold, beautiful way? Like, you could deliver the balloons and the cake and a gift, and make it bigger and better than maybe it ever was for them. So it will be special in that way. And the foster family will feel good because they won't have to do all of those things. Anyway, there's just so much. And like I said, start from yourself and where you are and what you're thinking, because you're going to have amazing ideas.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. It sounds like we all should go throw parties. It's so yeah, good.
Exactly.
As a listener of the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast, you are helping raise awareness about foster care adoption and the 115,000 adoptable children in the United States. By leaving a review, subscribing, sharing, and talking about this podcast, you can help children and sibling groups find their forever family. If you'd like more information on adopting a child or sibling group through the foster care system, please visit my website, forgottenadoptionoption.com. There you will find how you can get started and even order a copy of my book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option, which will guide you through the entire process. You can also find my book for children of all ages, Are You a Forever Family? My books are available in paperback, audio, and ebook formats, and they might even be available at your local library. I welcome you to reach out to me with questions, comments, and your own adoption story. I would love to hear from you if you're signing up for licensing classes or to hear where you are in the foster care adoption process. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Just search for Marcy Bursack. I really appreciate you tuning in, caring, and sharing, because every child deserves a family.